Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today, unsurprisingly, we've got another spicy one. We're playing a Team Italia, or Mardu if you prefer, Stoneblade deck. So, what is this deck and what is it trying to do? So, fundamentally, we are a Stoneforge Mystic deck. We are trying to put Stoneforge Mystic into play with some disruption around it and beat our opponent to death with Batterskull and Kaldra Compleat and sometimes Jitte. In order to disrupt our opponent, we have Source of Plowshares, as one might expect, 3 Prismatic Endings, which is just such a flexible removal spell, 4 Cabal Therapy, which is certainly an interesting card for a piece of disruption, but we'll get to why it's good in a second, and 4 Thoughtseize, which is just the best hand disruption we can get. Now, to go alongside our Stoneforge Mystic, we've got some other threats. We have Monastery Mentor, so this is going to give us loads of guys that can hold a weapon, but this is also very good with the Cabal Therapy that we mentioned earlier, because you play it, you get a token, and then you flash it back, you get another token. So you can effectively ignore the flashback cost, pretty much. It's a bit like how we used to play Young Pyromancer and Cabal Therapy once upon a time. We also have 4 Fable the Mirror Breaker. This can do a decent chunk of stuff, making treasure, digging us the cards we need, because we don't have the blue selection in our deck. So it's going to be card quality, and being able to copy stuff is quite nice too. We have 3 Dauthi Voidwalker, which is an excellent threat that also disrupts your opponents and sometimes gives you some pretty spicy things you can cast for free. Whenever you have Dauthi Voidwalker and discard spells, you're never too far away from a matchup where you might end up just tapping your Voidwalker, sacrificing it and putting an Emrakul into play, for example. Now, decks like this have traditionally been not so great because, again, we don't have the blue cards to sort of smooth everything together, and that sort of lack of card advantage and card quality really affects these sorts of decks. However, Fable the Mirror Breaker, this gives us our card quality because we get to filter through some things. Start for the Storyteller, which is a new one that I think is a very strong card. This gives us not only stuff to hold the equipment, but gives us a way of drawing cards. We have raw card advantage, and this is on par with blue card advantage spells in my opinion, and I think it's definitely going to be a staple moving forward for some decks. But when you look at what this does and how our deck functions, Monastery Mentor makes tokens. That's going to put counters on our store for the Storyteller. Fable the Mirror Breaker, this makes creature tokens. This is going to put, well, it makes a creature token. This is going to put a counter on a Staff of the Storyteller. Then we have Stoneforge Mystic. When we go and get a living weapon, these are going to put a token into play, which is going to give us a counter on Staff of the Storyteller. So we've got a few ways of making the Staff of the Storyteller good. And to be honest, you only need 1 additional creature token usually, and it's paid for itself in my opinion. And obviously Staff of the Storyteller combos really well with this other card called Staff of the Storyteller. 2 Staff of the Storytellers, great combo. Alright, we have a couple more cards to discuss here as well. We have a Wandering Emperor. You'll never guess what, this card makes creature tokens. More ways of putting counters on Staff of the Storyteller. We see this in the Shark Tail decks alongside like Shark Typhoon and Staff of the Storyteller. This is also just a pretty fancy win condition, can double as removal, does it all. One of the best Planeswalkers we've seen for quite some time. And then we have this new Planeswalker that I've not seen in play or played against. So this is a 4 mana, 5 loyalty Planeswalker. You can goad something. You can discard a card and draw a card. So this gives you your card quality a little bit. And then you can exile target creature or equipment card with mana value less than its loyalty from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it. That token gains haste. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. So if some of your stuff does get blown up, you can exile it from your bin with this and get a little bit of value. Honestly, I think it should probably just be another Wandering Emperor, but it's a card that I've not seen in play before, so we're going to give it a whirl. This is a list that somebody sent me that 5-0'd a league. I think there's definitely some tweaks to be made to it, but we're going to play it as is. A little chat about the mana base. We don't have room for any fun lands. I guess you could call Karakas a fun land, but this is a land that taps for one of our colours. So it's just a free include that does some stuff. But mostly we're just looking at fetch lands. We've got 2 Arid Mesas, 2 Bloodstained Mires, 4 Marsh Flats. And we've got the Badlands, 2 basic plains, 2 plateaus, a Savai Triome, and a bunch of scrublands with a couple of swamps as well. So we don't have a basic mountain to fetch, which is something I'm going to have to keep in mind when I'm playing this deck. But we do have 4 basics. We're basically saying if they Blood Moon us, we have red mana, right? So we're not playing around Wasteland, we're playing around Blood Moon with this configuration, which makes sense to me. We don't have any room for Wastelands here because we got some black cards and stuff like that, which hopefully a singleton Urborg might help us out casting. Well, that's it for the main deck. Sideboard-wise, we've got an interesting selection of tools, I will say. We have 4 pieces of Graveyard Hate and Surgical Extraction. Also, this card is pretty good with Monastery Mentor because it's free. We have 2 Meltdown, just a standard powerful red card for trying to blow up the Painter and 8-cast type matchups. We have 3 Pyroblast. We're in red, we're playing Pyroblast in the sideboard. That's pretty much a given. 2 Plague Engineers, this should help us out versus the Elf matchup and sometimes Goblins. And, you know, it comes in handy in various other places too. 2 Containment Priests, this is going to be against Reanimator, it's going to be against Show and Tell, it's going to be Elves. And it's pretty reasonable against Death and Taxes as well because of all their Flicker Wisp shenanigans alongside Aether Vial. We have 1 Deafening Silence, which is a very strange number of these to have in my opinion, because it's the sort of card that you want to have access to on turn 1 or not at all. So maybe there should be more of these in the sideboard, but we'll see. This is for like Storm decks, by the way. And we have 1 Court of Grace. So this is going to be good against the sort of the really slow, grindy control matchups where we just want to be slowly overwhelming our opponent. Obviously, it's pretty tasty with the stuff of Storyteller. You're drawing 2 additional cards a turn cycle. Should be very easy to put games away unless your opponent's got a combo that they can just bap you with. All right. That's obviously we're not going to be boarding it in against the combo matchups. All right. So this is the deck we're playing today. But before we play that, just have to do a quick plug of the channel. Like, comment, subscribe. These things really help me out. I've got up to 1,200 subscribers now, so I'm trying to push and get up to 2,000. That'd be really good if you can help me do that. And if you like a donation deck for the channel, you can contact me via Discord, which will be in the description. And you can arrange a donation deck as well as joining the channel as a member or my Patreon. All right, let's play some Legacy with this Team Italia Stoneblade. All right, this is our opening hand. It's going to be very good against a combo deck, reasonable against a control deck, and pretty abysmal versus an aggro deck of some description. I think we're going to keep it, strip their hand away, and then try and beat them down with Mentor. We are on the draw. Sorry, we're on the play here, so we can play around a Wasteland quite easily. I think we'll use this to get a basic Swamp. Our opponent might think we're Reanimator, which might change how they play if we do it like this. Let's have a look at what our opponent's working with. Brazen Borrower, Force of Will, Dragon's Rage Channeler. Okay, so we can take the Dragon's Rage Channeler, because that gives them no reasonable turn 1 play. There's a Volcanic Island we know about. Okay, so we have pretty good information about what's in our opponent's hand right now, but we can play around Days, so we may as well do that for free. We'll get this Marsh Flats going. What do we want to take here? I think we want to Thoughtseize our opponent again. So we can take the... If we take the Force of Will here, it's going to be a little bit awkward. How quickly are they going to be able to Murktide Region us if we do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 1 more turn to hit the Murktide Region. So I guess we take the Force of Will here. And we'll crack this. Get ourselves another Swamp, I suppose. And we'll Cabal Therapy our opponent. We'll name Brazen Borrower. Get a cheeky 2 for 1. So we got Wasteland, Wasteland, Murktide. Those are the Wastelands we know about. So we got Wasteland and Murktide in hand. We can't get a red source that isn't Wastelandable. So I think we have to, if we want to play the Fable, this needs to go and get a Plateau, but I think we're just going to get Plains here and play ourselves a Monastery Mentor. We're not giving our opponent Wasteland targets, so they might have to Wasteland their own land if they want to put... Okay, they drew a land right off the top. Sure. Unfortunate. 1, 2... So we don't want our opponent to find a blue source this turn. They did not find a blue source. So we can strip the Murktide this turn and also see what's going on in our opponent's hand. This is a little bit of an awkward situation here, but I think the most important thing is to make sure they don't have a Murktide Region in their hand. Sure. So now they have a Daze that we know about, which is good for us. We can play around that. And our plan is just to play this Dauthi Voidwalker and ride it to victory. Okay, so we know what they drew for the turn. This is interesting. We could play out this Fable and Mirror Breaker instead of our Dauthi Voidwalker. But if we play out the Dauthi Voidwalker, anything they do we can get back. It's an interesting choice here. I think we play out the Dauthi though. Around a daze. So we've got a threat now. We're not going to flash back a Cabal Therapy. We know they have a daze. It's just easier to play around this than do anything else. Okay, they're cracking a Misty Rainforest. This could be a Murktide Regent, which would be pretty bad for us, truth be told. A Sprite Dragon. Ooh, I haven't seen one of these for a while. Sure, so this can come in for 1. They might daze just to put a counter on this, because we have hurt ourselves quite a lot life total-wise. We have perfect information of our opponent's hand. We're about to play a Fable Mirror Breaker. Swords to Plowshares. Okay, I don't hate that. I think we can afford to let this Sprite Dragon do its thing. We will Fable now, leaving up Swords to Plowshares. Playing around daze. They might daze us to put a counter on this. That's fine by me. They did not do that. We go to attacks. So we've got a faster clock than our opponent at this point. But Sprite Dragon can certainly stack up if they string together a bunch of cantrips. I don't want to just fire off this plow. Obviously I don't want to fire it off now because of the daze, but I don't want to fire it off until I know that this is the thing we need to hit, because the Murktide could be a problem for us. But we'll see how this turn pans out. We have to imagine that the daze is going out of our opponent's hand here. We do still have these Cabal Therapies hanging around, so we can find something like a Staff the Storyteller. We can mess with our opponent's hand and draw some cards. Sure. So the Sprite Dragon is getting pumped. It's unlikely they still have a daze, but it's possible. Okay, so they're wastelining this. That's fine. So they haven't shuffled away yet. So in our upkeep, they might be getting a blue card or a daze. So I think in our upkeep, with this trigger on the stack, we will plow this guy. Because this means they can't force of will this. They just have daze as an option. Alright, they've conceded to that. Sure. So, Delver. Pyroblast's going to be good here. Even more so because we've seen the Fairy Dragon. Is there anything else I would like? I don't think so, in all honesty. I think our setup here is pretty reasonable. There could be arguments made for some of these other cards, but I honestly think this is where I want to be. Nahiri is a card that seems less good to me. Wandering Emperor can run away with games, but it's quite slow and expensive against a deck with daze, so I don't really want to play that game. And then we have one more cut to find. Interesting. It's probably supposed to be the top end, so like the Fable, which is now the top end. That's probably where we're best off cutting, I think. Dauthi Voidwalker obviously very good against a deck that wants to fill its graveyard up. This gives us maximum removal spells. We know they've got the Dragon in, which Prismatic Ending is reasonable at killing. This is our opening hand. We've got Thoughtseize into a selection of 2-drops, which is kind of where I want to be, I think, so we're going to keep this. Wasteland can do a little bit of a number on us, but we've got 2 draw steps to find another land, or potentially 3 draw steps to find another land, because we're going to lead out on a basic swamp. So we can always try and play a spell on 2, but they might have daze, so we might have to push into the daze. We'll see though. We've got a lot of options here. Our opponent played a Scalding Tarn into a Volcanic Island, into a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Sure, this is the best 1-drop available to them. And they've got Mishra's Bauble to follow up with, so that's going to be some card quality for them. They're getting rid of a Lightning Bolt. That's kind of interesting to me, since we've shown them we've got little guys that are worth Lightning Bolting. Means to me they probably have another Lightning Bolt, unless their plan is just to get the Channeler flipped as soon as possible. Right, so we've seen an Urborg that we're not really interested in doing anything with. Let's Thoughtseize and see what's going on. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand. Dragon's Rage Channeler, Force of Will, Ponder. I think the scariest thing here, given we don't have any removal, is another threat. This will turn this guy into a 3-3, but they can already turn into a 3-3 using the Ponder. So I think the correct play here is to take the Channeler. And, oh, there was another, was that a battle? I thought it was a land for a second then. Enters the battlefield is, okay, I don't think that card's, I don't know. My opinion of battles is that they're not very good. For Legacy at least. But we'll see. We'll see what this does. I don't think the Delver deck wants to take several turns off to try and flip this. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. It's also very easy for us to kill with a Prismatic Ending, which is another reason I'm not a fan of the battles, because they're quite cheap on the front side. So we've seen the Ponder from our opponent, and they've played Misty Rainforest. So they've got one mystery card in hand. Can we just lead out straight away into one of these things? We'll play out this land that they know we have, because we don't care if this one gets wastelanded. We don't want to lose our white source. But if we play this out, we have to play the Dauthi Voidwalker. If we play out the Scrubland, we can play out the Mystic or the Staff. I think we play out the Mystic. Or is it the Mystic or the Staff? No, we play out the Staff first, because I think this might get a Force of Will, and then we can play the Stoneforge, which can Batterskull and secure the board. Now, we know they have a way of killing a Stoneforge as well, so that's something we're going to have to try and get out of our opponent's hand when the time comes. This just lines up better with what our opponent's doing. So this is a chump blocker if we need it. If they want to waste this thing on it, then that's fine by me. Alright, they're cracking. So they obviously didn't want all the cards from the Ponder. Okay, so they're playing this battle thing. Are they just doing this to kill a token? Oh, these things are weird. Not played with them on Magic Online yet, so it's a bit of an interesting one. Okay, so they're going to attack this. Our opponent's got 3 cards in hand, including a Force of Will. So I'd quite like to draw a red source here. So far this has gained us 3 life. A Kaldra Compleat. This is a tricky one. We can play out our Stoneforge Mystic here. We can't Pyroblast if we do that. We can draw a card and then play a Dauthi Voidwalker into a Daze. I think that's where we want to be here. Okay, we have a Thoughtseize. I think the play here is Dauthi Voidwalker potentially into a Daze, but maybe a Force of Will. Force of Will, pitching Force of Will. Alright. So our opponent... So that was just a him to Turak, basically. So our opponent's got 1 card in hand. They can attack the battle next turn and get this guy. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, deals 2 damage to any target. Sure. So we've got a bunch of removal spells that clean this up, whether that's Prismatic Ending or Source to Plowshares. Both of them will finish this off quite easily. So we've got 7 things that just kill this. And that's going to... They get to cast this as a spell. So Teferi is exceedingly good against the battles. And then they've got a Brainstorm, sure. So we're looking for a removal spell. We've got a Thoughtseize to make sure it lands. Right, so they've got a fetch lands. They can do a nice Brainstorm here. Now, if they play a Murktide here, then we're going to have to deal with that as well. There's a Murktide. Sure. So, our opponent's playing like Tribal Dragons over there. A Scrubland. That doesn't do it. So this is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this is lethal right now. Do we have a way that can do anything here at all? We can put a counter on the Staff of the Storyteller by playing a Monastery Mentor and a Thoughtseize. That's not really going to help us out, is it? I think we're just dead here. Our opponent just drew a whole bunch of threats and we didn't draw our removal spells. Alright. I think on the play we're in a better shape. So we'll just run it back as we've got the configuration here. The Containment Priest doesn't stop the battles because it's a spell they cast, so it flips and then they cast it. Yeah. So let's have a look. All lands, we cannot keep this. We cannot keep this one either. Oh my god, we're just going to get mulliganed into oblivion here. Okay, we can keep this. This goes back. I guess we'd have to lose Scrubland. And then we have choices here. I think it has to be the Pyroblast. Because then we can just get a basic off of this. Yeah. We're going to lose this one to the mulligan. That's a shame. It's only possible that we can pull out here, but our opponent is starting on 7 and we're starting on 4 on the play. This shouldn't be much of a game, to be honest. Unfortunate. Not that one. We want this one, and we'll go and get a basic swamp, so we're not wastelandable. I think that the correct play here is to take the thing that actually can kill us, and see if we can have enough turns to draw back into the game. Not ideal, but I think we just need to conserve our life total. They're probably going to draw a Oh, no, they didn't draw a Dragon's Race Channel this turn. That's nice. I'll be curious to see if they play out the Bauble or not. No, they're going to hold it for a Dragon's Race Channeler. Thoughtseize. Alright, well, we're not casting it, right? Force of Will, a thing that can be a threat. I guess we'll take that. We don't really want to play out our Scrubland because we don't want to expose it to Wasteland until we can actually cast a spell with it. There's a Schooling Time we know about. So they got Brainstorm. Fetch, well, they've just cracked their fetch. They can't have Brainstorm fetch land this turn if they want it. Okay, so they're brainstorming after playing a fetch and cracking it. That is an interesting play to me. They might have just brainstorm locked themselves into nothing. A Kaldra Compleat that we don't have anything to do with, sure. Misty Rainforest. They're cracking it. And a Bauble. No longer holding that for the... Still no threat though, so we certainly bought ourselves some time to maybe get into this game, but we are not in this game. So our opponent has a bunch of removal spells. Well, has a removal spell and a Force of Will. I think we just play into them because we're going to have to at some point. Okay, so this is just going to get lightning bolted. Yep. So they might have a Chain Lightning as well. Obviously we don't know what they did with their Brainstorm necessarily, so... There's a Sprite Dragon. So we have a removal spell for this. They do have a Force of Will in hand. Let's see what we draw. Prismatic Ending, okay. White, black. Probably getting Force of Willed, which will also grow the dragon and give them more of a clock. Force of Will, pitching Force of Will. Our opponent's favourites. Sure. So we can just replay that next turn as long as we don't get wastelanded. And the Force of Will is gone. Sure, we can take 2. We've already taken a bit from the Thoughtseizes. We'll play this Urborg out because it lets us play around days. White, black. Let's try and get rid of the Sprite Dragon. Sure. We just have to keep our opponent's board clear until we can deploy something. Staff of the Storyteller would be quite nice, because that represents card advantage to get us back in this game. Monastery Mentor. We know they have a Chain Lightning floating around. I don't think it's worth playing the Mentor until we can play something with it and get some sort of value. Our opponent didn't have a threat on board last turn either, so I don't think we have to play out the Mentor when we're not being clocked. We can play it a little bit slow. Okay, so we've got an answer for the next thing. We've sort of not stabilized, but we've made this into a real game a little bit now. This little thing. Sure. So this is going to shoot us for 2, right? This can shoot players as well, right? To any other target, sure. So it's going to shoot us for 2. Nothing I'm particularly worried about. The planes. Again, we don't want to play out the Mentor until we can actually do something with it. Especially now that we can play it around a Wasteland. So they've cracked that fetch land. They're just Chain Lightning the Invasion of Tarkir, sure. Oh, because they own it, they get to copy it. That's kind of cool. I've not seen that before. Alright, so we have a choice. We can either plow this now, or we can play into a daze. Our opponent's got 3 cards in hand. So if we draw a land, that'd be nice. We did not draw a land. So, I think we'll play the Dauthi Voidwalker. It's not as good as the Mentor here, but we don't really want this to do its thing. So we'll play out this Dauthi Voidwalker. I think we plow this now because they can untap into hardcast Force of Will. This will at least cost them 2 cards. Alright. We saw it off. Now we have the threat. This Dauthi Voidwalker can turn to a lightning bolt if needs be. Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, this is worth attacking with. Sure. So there's a lightning bolt on our guy. Let's go and let's do off of these lands. Let's get Stoneforge on the go. So this is going to get us a Batterskull, which is something we might be able to realistically hardcast soon, even if we don't put it in. But also, we kind of want a little bit of a life total buffer here. So let's try and get that going. It's kind of interesting, the Chain Lightning invasion. Yeah, so this guy is going to kill our guy. Then we can untap and maybe play a Batterskull. Our opponent's still got 3 cards in hand, though. A Savai Triome. I think we do want this. Our opponent has shown us a decent selection of removal here. Do we want to jam the Mentor and try and tax them a little bit more? They know we have a Batterskull. We're going to try this Mentor out. If they don't answer it, then we're in okay shape. So they don't have any lightning bolts in hand right now. Otherwise, this would just get one. A Ponder. That's a pretty good one to help dig themselves out of a hole. This shouldn't have been a real game, but it is. So that's nice. Our opponent probably has quite a lot of reactive cards. Well, we saw they had a reasonable amount of reactive cards. Just going to be a Murktide. Murktide's going to be good. There it is. So this is an 8/8. So Lightning Bolt kills us. Unless we can kill this. A Plateau. So we can play this and play a Batterskull around a... I'm going to leave up the Scrubland because that's the one I'd rather have Wasteland at this point, I think. I'm going to play this. This will give us a token and pump our guy. We just need our opponent to not kill us this turn. They've already played 2 Lightning Bolts and a Chain Lightning. So we're just dead to our opponent's Lightning Bolt if they have one. So let's hope that they don't. Dragon's Rage Channeler. That's not a Lightning Bolt. They are representing 11 damage in the air. Okay, they have the Lightning Bolt as well. They just had it all. Sure. So our opponent mulliganed... we mulliganed to 4. And we were pretty close to winning that game, to be honest. We were relatively close to stable. If they didn't have the Murktide there, we'd just win that game, I think. So, yeah. That's pretty interesting. The thing that they're running with the... whatever it's called. The Battle plus the Chain Lightning is kind of interesting. But then you're paying 2 mana for a shock. Followed by another 3 red mana just to get a 4/4. That seems like a terrible rate in Legacy for me. But I appreciate people trying stuff out, though. And fair play to our opponent. They played some stuff out. All right, we lost a mulligan. Let's go to the next round. Sure, we have a hand that plays a turn 2 Dauthi Voidwalker. And then we'll keep this and we'll lead out on a swamp here. We could play out Scrubland, but that exposes us to Wasteland, which shuts down so much of our hand. Our opponent has mulligan to 6 cards. We'll begin with the swamp, as we discussed, and we'll pass the turn. Hopefully this Dauthi Voidwalker will do stuff, but just being down for 2 is pretty reasonable anyway. Underground Sea. Okay, that says Doomsday to me. Grief. Okay. Let's see what it is. If it is Doomsday, then our hand doesn't really interact. Now, this could very likely be Death Shadow as well. Or that sort of blue-black splash red deck that I played the other day that won a tournament. That was... it had the Grief line. This has got a Dark Ritual, right? They pitched a Dark Ritual to this, so it's not that. So it's probably Doomsday or a reanimated deck that just happens to have Underground Sea. I don't really think our hand's very good against either of those matchups. So, you know, we have a Dauthi Voidwalker, but they can just ping that away now. Yeah. So that's pretty bad. And then if they reanimate this and take something else, then we're kind of just whistling in the wind. Is reanimate a Dark Ritual? Is this Entomb reanimate? Entomb exhume? Exhume would be a weird one. They're reanimating my Dauthi Voidwalker. Interesting. And they're exhuming their Grief. Sure. So they're going to take our Swords to Plowshares, and we are dead. Not sure how we're going to come back from this one. They also have a Swords to Plowshares saved under our Dauthi Voidwalker. The Ultimate Betrayal. Staff the Storyteller is not bad. I think we'll play out this Karakas. That's the sort of thing we want to have in play. If we can do Staff the Storyteller into Umezawa's Jitte, then we can win this game. Because their guys aren't enormous threats. We can take 4 hits. Well, we take 3 hits and we die on the 4th hit. So if we can play the Jitte next turn, so we can draw a card, play Jitte, turn after we can equip Jitte, and then once we start accruing counters on this, we are okay. Now, if they hold back the Dauthi Voidwalker, we can't equip the Jitte because they can plow our guy. So I'm not going to do it this turn. But next turn, they're probably going to hold back the Dauthi Voidwalker rather than attacking, which means we just don't do the Jitte line then. So we have options, depending on what our opponent does with their turn. They've got 1 card in hand, so hopefully they're just sort of all in on what they've got in play. But we'll see. There's the Badlands, who's looking just like Reanimate that happened to draw the Underground Sea. What have we got here? Another Staff of the Storyteller. Okay, I don't hate that. So, what is the play here? I think, however we play this turn, it's definitely starting off we're definitely going to be drawing a card this turn. So let's do that now. We've drawn another Dauthi Voidwalker. That's probably better than playing the Staff of Storyteller or the Jitte here. This stops them putting in a scarier monster. This also can block and trade with our own Dauthi Voidwalker from earlier. So they have an interesting choice here. They can either sack their Dauthi Voidwalker to plow ours, or they can just attack and see if we do the trade. I think we are doing the trade here. Shadow on shadow, violence. So they both get exiled as well. So they can't reanimate something. They got a land. So if we draw a land, we can do our Umezawa's Jitte line. But we have given them the ability to do stuff for their graveyard. So let's see what we end up with here. Oh, I'm going to make me read this and work out what I'm supposed to do with it. I can discard a card to draw a card. I can exile type creature or equipment card with mana value, etc, etc, etc. Okay, I think we're going to play this. So this way we can have 2 spirit tokens and we can double block the grief if we want to. This is also going to give us a lot more card advantage. We will crack this now to try and get deeper into our deck. We found another mana source, that's good. And then we'll pass a turn. So we can double block this grief if we want to. I don't think the 1 damage here is going to matter that much. Alright, they didn't attack. And we found the mana for the Jitte in here. So I like our spot, truth be told. Let's jam the Jitte. And we're going to leave up the Karakas here, just in case we need it for something. Go to this. We don't care if we get hit by another grief now because we are doing fine. Like we don't really need the things in our hand right now to win the game. We just want to sort of lock out our opponent's graveyard with another Dauthi Voidwalker if we can, but we only have 1 more in the deck. We kind of want our opponent to reanimate this grief because that's 4 life. We don't care about our hand right now. Like, it would be nice to have this Fable the Mirror Breaker, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Let's -1 this. Okay, our opponent just conceded there. The power of Jitte. Excellent. So we played a fair game there, and we got to win because of it. All right, Deafening Silence, I would like you. Surgical Extractions, I would like you. Containment Priest, I would like you. This is 7 cards. I think Wandering Emperor and Nahiri are too slow. Get out of here. Monastery Mentor, probably a similar jam, to be honest. The Prismatic Endings are pretty weak. Like, you can hit a... what's it called? Animate Dead. But I don't really think that's going to be how we're winning this game. So we want to at least get rid of 2 of those. Get rid of 2 Mentor, and then maybe the other ending. This is probably a fine setup. We've got some big things to do. The Fable can help us draw into more disruption to keep the game locked down when we get to that point. The Deafening Silence will slow our opponent down so they can't do it all in 1 turn in theory. Sure. We are not favoured on the draw. Not that I've played the deck we're playing before, but I've played enough Magic before. So we have 2 of our sideboard cards as well as 2 other graveyard hate pieces that we can cast and a Thoughtseize. I don't think we're going to get a better hand. This is pretty much the best hand we can have in this matchup, so I guess we can have another Surgical Extraction. Our opponent has gone to 6, so we will keep our hand. So we can go Swamp, Thoughtseize, Untap, Scrubland, Dauthi Voidwalker. That's probably our best route to victory here. The Deafening Silence is fine, but I would rather just Thoughtseize our opponent and see what we can do. Please don't kill us, opponent. Don't cast a Dark Ritual. Oh no, they cast a Dark Ritual. That's not the one. That's usually bad news for us. Unmask. Targeting themselves. Okay, so we beat this with the... Oh. What? Oh, they misclicked. They misclicked and exiled their Grizzlebrand instead of the Reanimate in their hand or whatever. Wait, what? I don't understand this play at all. They should have just cast... So let's work out what they have here. So we saw a Reanimate and a Faith is Looting. So what they should have done this turn is unmask, pitch in the Dark Ritual, target themselves, put the Grizzlebrand in the bin, then reanimate it. Now we had that covered, and we win this game anyway. But our opponent just made a little mistake there. Alright, we are 1-1. Let's go to round 3. Alright, we're on the play. We have Staff into Jitte. I would have liked to 1-drop, and I'd like less lands, but our hand does some stuff. I think it's alright. We have a lot of wastelandable lands, but we don't actually care if they get wastelanded because we have a lot of redundancy in the land department. And we'll just start with a swamp. Then we'll play Staff of the Storyteller for Scrubland. If our opponent wastelands us, that's probably a positive for us. I'm trying to work out what situations we wouldn't Staff of Storyteller next turn. I guess we might want to play around days. We might have some permanent we have to answer this turn with a Prismatic Ending. We'll see what our opponent does. Right. Marsh Flats, cracking Marsh Flats. I feel we're probably going to get reanimated here. I feel in my bones. Dark Ritual. A Thoughtseize. Okay, so probably going to lose our Staff of the Storyteller here. Since that's the card in our hand that does stuff. Yeah, a little bit awkward. But believe in the heart of the cards, we're going to draw something. Oh, they took the Prismatic Ending. Alright, our opponent is more likely on... I don't know what our opponent's on, actually. Why wouldn't you take Staff of the Storyteller, then? A Bloodstained Mire. So we're going to play one of the lands they know about. Our opponent could be on Doomsday here. And they need that mana from the Lotus Petal. And they just don't care about Staff of the Storyteller. It's not something that's going to really interfere with their plans. Yeah, I suspect our opponent's Doomsday. That's my read on this. Badlands. Okay. Maybe we are on Reanimator. Unmask, targeting themselves. They're going to put Archon of Cruelty into the graveyard. Okay, that's why they got rid of the Prismatic Ending, because they've only got Animate Deads. Understood. So we're going to lose our guy. But we have 6 removal spells that can definitely deal with this. And we'll get rid of one of these many Scrublands. We don't have a long time to find them, though, because Archon of Cruelty does a lot of things. This Jitte probably not going to be very useful this game. Monastery Mentor. That's not going to do it, is it? So we need to remove a counter from this and draw a card. Another Plains. That's not the one, is it? I guess we play out this. Hold on, so this comes in for 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 and 8 is 16. So we don't want to play the fetch land here. So we'll discard the fetch land here. Do we play out this Jitte? Is there any point in playing the Jitte here? We might need it to make a token later on. But we're probably dead by that point anyway. It's a card that we can discard if we have to. I think we'll leave the Jitte in hand here. Like, it's fodder that we can discard. We'll crack this Bloodstained. We'll get rid of this because we can't do anything with the Bloodstained Mire here because we're taking 8 and 8. Now, our opponent might just be able to put another threat into play and then we lose the game next turn. But we've bought ourselves one draw step by not playing the Bloodstained Mire there. Right. Removal spell. That's not a removal spell. We've got another thing that we can pitch here. We can play this Plains. And there's no point playing the Jitte here. I guess if we can stabilize, but if they make us discard 2 cards, how is that going to pan out? It doesn't really matter actually, does it? No, we'll just play out this Jitte. They've already seen it, so it's not giving away any extra information. I'm just going to get clobbered for 8 again here. Well, we won 1 Reanimator game 1 today. That's something. So we're going to go to 1 here. We're looking. So we'll discard this Marsh Flats, which we can't do anything with. I have to imagine our opponent can reanimate their guy if we get rid of the Animate Dead. So we're probably going to need a Plow. We did not draw a Plow. There is nothing we can... Oh, that's not true, actually, is it? No, I'm just trying to think if there was a way that we could play a Mentor and put a counter on our Staff of the Storyteller. If we have 1 more mana, we could play Mentor, play the Cabal Therapy, and then draw a card with this. That still doesn't really get us anywhere. Sure, we're done here. Fair enough. Let's see if we can get there with some Surgical Extractions, Deafening Silence, and Containment Priest. Get rid of these Monastery Mentors. Is Monastery Mentor better than Fable here? Fable digs us to the cards, but Fable requires us to crack. Okay, we definitely get rid of the 4-drops. Do we need Fables or Mentors? Right, last time we got rid of these Prismatic Endings. Mentor is something that can actually win underneath an Archon, potentially. Whereas Fable is something that draws us the thing we need. This is also red mana. And we're basically just cutting out red mana from our deck, I think, from this particular game. Let's attack creature, mana. No, that's not really what we need here. Sure, we're going to roll at this. Maybe we should have the ending over one of the mentors. I'm not sure. Alright, this is a good fine hand. We will need another mana source, but we have 2 ways of stopping our opponent winning the game. And we have a Thoughtseizes. Like, we just need to draw the thing. Let's start off with a Thoughtseizes. Our opponent kept 7, so I'm not massively happy about this. We've got here Animate Dead, Grief, Grizzlebrand, Unmask, Dark Ritual. So one of these has to go at their... This is a tough one. I think if we get rid of the Grief, then they have to unmask themselves, and then we can get them with the Surgical. They could just Animate Dead the Grief, but then we can just hit that with a Surgical anyway. So we'll take the Grief and force them into 2 for 1 in themselves on the Unmask to make them discard a card. Although the fact that we've done that might make our opponent think twice about doing it. They might just pass a turn and then unmask us next turn. And Animate Dead their Grief. Prismatic Ending. That might be okay. But we have 2 Surgical Extractions here. One of them we can cast for mana. What did they draw here? They draw an Entomb? They did not draw an Entomb. So there's the Badlands we know about. Let's see how they navigate this turn. And they're just holding up. Sure. Interesting. A Scrubland. Okay. So I think we are on play the biggest, scariest thing we can play and try and clock our opponent, hoping these Surgical Extractions are enough. So we'll say yes. Also, Kaldra does a decent amount of stuff against Grizzlebrands because they can't really block it. So if they pivot into a show and tell line, we can at least get the Kaldra in, but we can also just put it in anyway if something goes wrong. But we have 2 layers of protection. How much is our opponent going to be able to do here? Unmask, targeting us. We will let that hit because we have 2 Surgical Extractions. What do they pitch? This Dark Ritual, wasn't it? Yeah, sure. They might pivot and take the Kaldra here. Yeah. Alright, so there's a Swamp. This would be a good turn to draw a Batterskull, I guess? An Urborg. Does that help our opponent? Not right now. I guess we play out an Urborg. Play out Staff the Storyteller. I do like this card. I think it's very good. And we get to hit our opponent for an almighty 1 damage here. What is this? Where? Sure. Okay, we just have a 1/1. So our opponent is a little bit of a spot here. Now our clock is not what you would describe as particularly good. But because of these double Surgical Extractions, we are ahead in this game. I quite like a piece of disruption here so we can have a peek at our opponent's hand. Faithless Looting. Sure. It's probably going to put the Grizzlebrand into the graveyard, which could be a tempting one for us to Surgical Extraction, but we don't really have to do it until the last minute. So we may as well try and get them to waste cards on it. Okay, they went through to their second main phase to see if we did anything. A Thoughtseize. I would love to Thoughtseize my opponent here. What have we got? Chance Annex, Animate Dead, Reanimate. I guess we take the Reanimate. And go to attacks. Why has it got Wear Tear listed twice? That's weird. Sure. The reason we took the Reanimate rather than the Animate Dead is we can interact with the Animate Dead. So if something somehow goes wrong from this position, we can still get rid of the bits and pieces. So this is going to be a flashback phase looting. Sure. I imagine the Wear Tear is going here. The Wear Tear and a Chancellor. So we have an Animate Dead in hand still. We're not going to crack this yet. We have no reason to. A Stoneforge Mystic, you say? That's a pretty good reason to crack this. I guess we could have just tapped it for red, actually, couldn't we? We have an Urborg, so we're going to get a Plateau here. Build your own Triome. And white. Let's play a Stoneforge Mystic. We just get a Batterskull here. And we'll attack with just a Spirit Token, then we'll put the Batterskull in our opponent's turn. And then our clock is a lot beefier. It's a 2-turn clock now. We do have these 2 pieces of protection. All right. Exhume. That's an interesting one, isn't it? We can cast this, targeting Chancellor of the Annex. Paying 2 life. No more Chancellors. Let's have a look what they got in deck. They've got an Archon of Cruelty here. Our opponent's hand is Entomb, Reanimate. And Animate Dead here. That's an interesting one. So we can hit the Grizzlebrand and leave them with a Grief. But they can Entomb for a Traxxas here. So this is going to get them a Grief. It's going to take away our Prismatic Ending. Okay, it's going to Entomb in response and get an Traxxas. Sure. Our opponents played this one pretty well. They're going to get an Traxxas. This is not one that we can Prismatic Ending. What do they got? A whole bunch of stuff here. So we've seen that Entomb already. There's 2 Lotus Petals, so I can only select one of those maximum. There is it's 2 instances in Tombs. They have choices there. Bunch of lands. Okay, so choose Badlands. So these go away. They chose Lotus Petal, Unmask, and Extirpate. So no Reanimate, no Entomb, no Thoughtseize. They played the Badlands. I imagine they're going to play this Lotus Petal as well. Reanimate, targeting the Grief. Sure. We will put in our Batterskull. This is putting our opponent to a lower life total, which I don't mind. 9. And they're just going to get one of these 2 Prismatic Endings that we don't really care about. This one's got 3 cards in hand. So it's the Extirpate, the Unmask, and an Animate Dead. Plow? Not a Plow. Not the turn I really needed that to be a thing, unfortunately. We only have access to 3 colours. We can't kill the Grief here. Yeah, we have to pass, I think. Bit awkward. We could have suicided in our Fraction Germ token to gain some life, but we can't really re-equip it. So we have to take the 7 and draw into one of our removal spells. The Containment Priest was very much the wrong time there. So it's going to be hard cast Unmasked targeting us. We will flash in this little guy. That shuts off the Animate Dead anyway, so we don't need to worry about being able to Prismatic Ending it. What we do need to do is kill the Atraxa. If we can draw a source of Plowshares, I think we can win the game. Oh, we drew a source of Plowshares. Alright. Goodbye, enemy Atraxa. Go to attacks. This and this. Coming. This will gain us some life as well. Alright. We're back in the driving seat, I think. You have to kill our Containment Priest if they want to get any more creatures into play unless they're hard casting them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they've still got Archon of Cruelty, so they can Dark Ritual into it. Alright, we've got a game. Let's go to game 3. We don't like to do anything differently here. The Prismatic Endings were something, I guess. Maybe I do want this Wandering Emperor instead of this Mentor, just as a way that we can possibly remove a creature in a long drawn-out game like that. Do want this Umezawa's Jitte. Like, if they've got one of these sort of rubbishy Grief draws, the Jitte is really nice. But so is the Batterskull in that situation. So maybe we're just getting rid of that and putting in a Mentor. That seems fine to me. We've just sort of sideboarded into pretty much dead guy ale by taking out our red cards. Our opening hand does not interact with the graveyard. This opening hand does. So we will keep this. And we'll put back the Kaldra. So we've got some options here. But our opponent might... They said lol in the chat, so I suspect they're just going to turn 1 us here. Thoughtseize. Sure. We're probably losing the Surgical Extraction, I would have to imagine. Yeah, there it goes. So we have a choice here. We can play out this Savai Triome so that we can play a Dauthi Voidwalker on the 2nd turn. Or we can Cabal Therapy our opponent and try and knock something out, but then we don't have the turn 2. But I think we have to play this Triome, which is a horrible play, but that's what happens when you draw your 1-off tap land that is in there just to fetch. Are we dead this turn? We do have a Plow, so we can kill a creature. Alright, mana's not the problem for our opponent. Do they have a creature? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so We would have got away with... No, we wouldn't have got away with it because of our thing. Alright, so let's go for black. Black. Let's put the Dauthi into play. Alright. So show and tell is still a thing they can do. Now we can source the Plowshares that. I would like to draw Staff the Storyteller this turn. That would be ideal. We did not draw Staff the Storyteller. So we have to Cabal Therapy our opponent. So they clearly don't have a way of putting creatures into the bin here. Kind of want to name Grizzlebrand, and if they have it, we just get to win. Because, like, what wouldn't they cast? A big creature. Oh, yeah. Okay, and then we're just going to cast the Grizzlebrand with our Dauthi Voidwalker there. Alright, so that was a pretty good read. We figured out our opponent. If they weren't playing anything, they had to have, like, a big guy, and that's exactly what they had. The extirpate from our opponent is a curious choice, I would say. I don't think that's really where you want to be. I guess you can extirpate your own guy in response to a surgical. I'm not sure about that one. Alright, we got a win against Reanimator. So we've beaten 2 Reanimator decks with a pretty fair black-white splash-red deck. It's not bad, is it? Let's go to round 3. Alright, we are playing against Bryant Cook, famed Storm player. We have bits of hand disruption. I think we can keep this. I don't imagine our matchup is very good here. But we can Cabal Therapy into Dauthi Voidwalker. Right. This looks like the Epic Storm, perhaps, but it could be on something else. Thoughtseize. Sure, this is going to probably strip... I don't know, it's hard to say what this is going to strip. Maybe one of the therapies, because the first therapy is usually not that good. It's the second therapy that does a lot of the work. I'm curious to see how much our opponent plays out cards from their hand. Verdant Catacombs into Thoughtseize. Oh, this is an interesting one. Let's see what our opponent's working with. Now, usually against Bryant Cook, the correct name is Lions Eye Diamond. Verdant Catacombs is not one of the ones that they play in the Epic Storm at the moment. I think if it was a Dark Ritual, they probably would have played Dark Ritual on turn 1. Let's try Dark Ritual. Okay, Burning Wish, Mox Opal. So they are on the Epic Storm. Understood. So the hand doesn't quite get there yet. So if we get a chance to play this Dauthi Voidwalker, we can drop this in and shut off the Echo lines, which would be pretty good. Okay, so there's a Tiger and the Burning Wish. What is this going to find? A Galvanic Relay. Sure. So we have 2 options here. We can either jam the Dauthi Voidwalker to shut off Echo, or we can hit the Relay. Relay's not going to be very big, so I think we're just going to play a threat now, and then next turn we can start the Storyteller and hit the Galvanic Relay if it's still in their hand. I think that's probably the best way. Bloodstained Mire. So our opponent's got a couple of mystery cards over there. I'll buy you. There's the Mox Opal. Okay, we're going in this turn. Just a little Galvanic Relay, sure. Verdant Catacombs. Alright. I don't think we have any cool... Let's check our sideboard just in case we have any cool Burning Wish targets. I don't think we do. We have Meltdown, actually. We might be able to get that later on. That's pretty good. Now, we don't really want to burn our Dauthi Voidwalker if we can avoid it. So this is gone now. I think we're just going to be attacking with this guy. I think we want to play another Dauthi Voidwalker just so we have the ability to never let up on our Graveyard Hate to stop the Echo while still being able to cast a Burning Wish for Meltdown if our opponent plays out to the board. There's a Mishra's Bauble. That's not one we can catch with a Meltdown, sadly. Fable the Mirror Breaker. Sure, not too interested in that one. Let's go to attacks. So this time we play out the Staff of the Storyteller. We don't actually want to use it to flashback a Cabal Therapy yet, because the 1 damage will change the clock. Now, our opponent might fetch with their land, but they don't really have a problem with mana, so I don't think they're going to use their fetch. Whereas this is going to buy us a turn. We don't want to let our opponent just leave their fetch land uncracked and give themselves an extra turn. Right, so there's the Bauble. Okay, they are using the fetch. Okay, interesting. So they baubled themselves and then cracked the fetch. Sure. Right, so we got game 1. Game 2, we would like these Meltdowns. We would like Plague Engineers for Empty the Warrens. We would like Deafening Silence On the green, I don't know if it's going to be a Progenitor Ruse. Do we have a way of dealing with a Progenitor Ruse? Not really. So it's probably not worth doing. Prismatic Endings are pretty good here. The Source of Plowshares are blank pieces. These cards cost too much mana to be relevant. This is not an Umezawa's Jitte game unless we get into the Goblin Weeds, then maybe. But we already have enough stuff coming out here. And we have one spare slot, which I think should be taken up by either a Pyroblast or a Surgical Extraction. Pyroblast can hit Echo of Eons, but doesn't hit anything else. Well, it can hit a Brainstorm, I guess. So this is passable. It can also hit like an Echo of Eons. Sorry, an Echoing Truth. That's the one. Surgical Extraction. Our opponent is an incredibly competent Storm player. Like one of the best Storm players around. So he's not going to leave anything in his graveyard for us to Surgical Extraction, to be honest. So I think we should probably have the Pyroblast. Like, we can make an opening for ourselves with Discard and then Surgical Extraction. I think this is roughly what we're looking at. Maybe we can get rid of this and have 1 and 1. I don't think we want to overload on these effects, though. Monastery Mentor allows us to close the game quickly and can also contest a Empty the Warren's board state. We're going to submit like this. Our opponent has seen that we've got red sources. Doesn't really know much beyond the black-white spells we have. They might be expecting Meltdown because of the red. If they have a Progenitor Ruse, then obviously Source to Plowshares is going to be something that we'll miss. But the Epic Storm doesn't usually run the Progenitor Ruse, but Bryant loves testing new stuff. That's one of the reasons he's so good, because he tests stuff instead of just saying, is this good or not? And just theory crafting actually puts the work in. So, what does this hand do? Is one Cabal Therapy good enough to do anything in this game? I don't think so. Especially since these are all 3-drops, which are just blank in the matchup. We need earlier drops. Okay, we have Thoughtseize, we have Meltdown. And we have Prismatic Ending. And we can just drop probably the 3-drops since we don't have the mana for it. So we can Thoughtseize into Meltdown potentially. Let's see how good our opponent's turn 1 is. No play, okay. Let's crack this. So we need a black-red source to cast our spells here. So we're going to get a Badlands. We will Thoughtseize our opponent. This looks like a Brainstorm to protect the hand. That would be my guess. Nope. This is going to be a Veil of Summer to protect the hand. Sure. So this won't do anything. We don't take 2 life for it though, which is something I'd much rather see the hand. Okay, so we've got a Bauble and nothing else. Okay. There's no point trying to kill this because they're just going to crack in response. Dauthi Voidwalker we can't do anything with right now. So we're just going to cast our little staff and then continue on our merry way. I've seen the Meltdown in our hand. That's not ideal. Our opponent will know to keep things in hand instead now. Right, so they're going to draw a card. Of all the cards I could have seen, that's definitely the worst one. Dark Ritual. So this is the turn our opponent goes. Wishclaw Talisman. They know we have a Meltdown, so this is probably getting activated this turn. Lion's Eye Diamond. Lion's Eye Diamond. Is this an Echo turn? Or is this a Galvanic Relay? Oh, it's just a Tendrils, right. They've got enough mana here for Tendrils. So they're going to create a load of mana here. Activate this. They can just go and get Tendrils if they got one in the main deck. Otherwise, they can go and get Burning Wish. And go and... yeah, so there's a Burning Wish. Go and get Tendrils. Point in our face. Easy peasy. Alright, so... do we want to do anything differently here? I don't think so. I think we just send it back in. We're on the play, so that benefits us a little bit. This doesn't cast our spells, so we need to mulligan. This one is pretty good. We don't really have a removal spell, a way of getting a threat into play. So I think we get rid of the Pyroblast here, and we just go for a Thoughtseize into Cabal Therapy, holding up Surgical Extraction. Our opponent's mulligan to 5 already, so luck is on our side here. So this gets Badlands, and the other one gets Scrubland. That makes sense. Thoughtseize. Wishclaw Talisman, Echo of Eons, Lion's Eye Diamond. So we take the Lion's Eye Diamond here. That's the obvious choice. In our opponent's draw step, we could surgically extract the Lion's Eye Diamond here, which I think is the correct play. This shuts off the Echo. And what do they draw? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we got Lotus Petal. This does actually turn on the Wish Claw, so they can play the Wish Claw this turn. It'll cost them the Lotus Petal, but I think that's worth it. So Lotus Petal down, Mox Opal, Wish Claw, Bauble. So probably going to be playing a tiny bit of draw go here. We know they can't get the Lion's Eye Diamonds because they're all in exile. We know they've got one kind of hand that we don't want in their graveyard, so I think we're just going to pass and hope to draw a land next turn so we can make the Mentor, because that's the quickest way that we can get to victory, I think. It's the quickest threat. So let's try and draw a land here. We drew a land. Okay. So we said this was going to be Scrubland, didn't we? So we have black for Dauthi Voidwalker. So we'll play out the Mentor. This is the fastest clock we can make. Our opponent can't crack their Bauble until they get another artifact because they don't want to lose Metalcraft. Okay, so now they can crack the Bauble and get some cards going. A Cabal Therapy. Just trying to work out what's the best way of making damage. So if we make this turn, this is guaranteed. I think this is the better one, and it gives us more options for doing stuff as well. Right, so they're going to see these Cabal Therapies in our hand. Not very good right now. So this is 3. We're trying to fade like Dark Ritual draws from our opponent. It's probably the best draw they have now. Mishra's Bauble. Okay, that's another turn for us. Hopefully this can dig us towards a Meltdown. What are we drawing? Our opponent's going to see it before we do. If it's a Meltdown, they might scoop. Okay, I guess it was a Meltdown. Let's draw a card. Oh, it was deafening silence. Okay. Alright, so we managed to get one. Our opponent mulliganed 5, which certainly helped. Yeah. Things lined up nicely for us there. Alright, let's go to the final round. We are currently 3-1, I think. I think that's right, 3-1. I think we just lost to Delver so far. Right, we're into the final round. This is our opening hand. We have 1, 2, 3 curve. We do need a land for the third. We do have this Kaldra that we don't want in our hand as well. But Fable Mirror Breaker can pitch this if we need to. And Cabal Therapy, because we're on the draw, we're going to have a little bit more of an indication of what we're looking for. Cabal Therapying in the blind on turn 1 is pretty miserable if you don't know what your opponent's playing. Okay, an island. Alright, there are a selection of cards our opponent could be playing. I think what we need to do here is fetch a black source in case our opponent does have wastelands. So we need to get to our turn 2 plays. So let's Cabal Therapy our opponent. Let's see if we get a response. It should be Brainstorm, right? We hit the Brainstorm. Excellent. So this is looking like some sort of Shark Tail deck, I think. So would we like to play a Starfall Storyteller into a Prismatic Ending? Not particularly. Would I rather play the Dauthi Voidwalker into the ending or the Starfall Storyteller? If we just get both Starfall Storytellers running, we should win this game. So we're going to play the Dauthi Voidwalker into it. This might force them to Timeless Dragon in response, because otherwise it goes under the Walker, which isn't what they want. So this is gone, and the Flood Strand is gone. Do we want to Cabal Therapy to take the Prismatic Ending? No. We want our opponent to spend their turn and their mana Prismatic Endinging. That's the ideal, I think, here. If we can draw another mana source, ideally one that taps for white, then we can jam a Starfall Storyteller and start drawing cards. And we should be able to outdraw our opponent with this draw as long as we hit our land drop. Prismatic Ending, exactly as predicted on our guy, so we successfully baited it out. And then we can just play a game where we have more card advantage than our opponent. Which is pretty gross. Starfall Storyteller. Are we in? Spell Pierce. Okay. Wasn't expecting a Spell Pierce from this deck. A little bit sad. We're holding up Plow here. If they make a dragon, we can Plow it. Which I think we probably just want to do. Sure. Let's just say no right away. And guess we're back at the... We want to leave the Scrubland just in case our opponent has back to basics. We want to have a thing that taps for multiple things here. We guess we do have Urborg as well already, actually. We'll do this and play the Staff of the Storyteller. We will draw a card now in case we draw a Thoughtseize. We did not draw a Thoughtseize. We drew a Prismatic Ending, which would have been a much cleaner answer for that guy, but most of their guys are tokens, so shouldn't be too hard to kill one of them if necessary. This might just be a dress down to dig. Sure. So the Prismatic Ending, but we already got a card off of it, and we got a 1/1 body left over, which is fine. I wish we had a red source here, but such is life. Here comes the Thoughtseize. A dress down. Interesting. 2 lands. Alright. We are ahead. We don't want to hit this. There's no point wasting our Prismatic Ending on it. We just want to draw a red source for our Fable the Mirror Breaker. We did fetch the basic on turn 1 in case our opponent was a Wasteland deck. I think that's the correct play still. And they've got 2 cards in hand. If they've got a Shark Typhoon in hand, I'm not going to be very happy. But what are we going to do? It's only going to gobble up our Spirit token. It's not the end of the world. They could hard cast a Force of Will here. But they got 1 card, so... I think we want the Plateau since we already have access to lots of black mana off of Urborg. Let's cast this using as many basics as we can, which is 1. Did you draw hard card? They didn't get the Force of Will. Okay, so now we're cooking with gas. We might be able to hard cast this Kaldra soon. That's the thing we're interested in. Supreme Verdict. Sure. Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. A Badlands. I think we'll get rid of the Prismatic Ending here. That's a pretty good one. I think we will fire this one out. We could wait to draw a spell to go with it, but we might not have a spell to go with it. But we might have a Kaldra next turn, which is a spell to go with it. So, alright, there's the Plow. A Cabal Therapy. I don't think this is going to do a great deal for us here. We could Cabal Therapy now and name Force of Will, which means our Kaldra is more likely to resolve, but I think we'll just save it till next turn here. If we draw a Stoneforge, we might be able to play it here. Staff of the Storyteller. We'd very much like this to resolve, so we're going to Cabal Therapy our opponent first. Force of Will. Nothing. Excellent. So we can go cast this for black and white. This gets us a token. That's flying. We can draw a card here. We haven't played a land yet. So we can play this land and then have a Kaldra next turn. We're going to not attack so we can make a Spirit token, which will put another charge counter on Staff of the Storyteller. A mountain, sure. Oh yeah. Look at this. This is card advantage right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we do have the mana here to make this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's have one of these. He's going to put another counter on our Staff of the Storyteller. We get to go to attacks. We're going to leave back our Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. Yeah. So Staff of the Storyteller is allowing us to have a better card advantage engine than our opponent. So we will Cabal Therapy right now, flashing it back, sacrificing this guy that's going to die anyway. I'm going to name Supreme Verdict. We've already seen the Supreme Verdict. Okay, it's just an island, sure. Let's draw a card. We're plowing our Kiki-Jiki, not our Phyrexian Germ token. That's interesting. They're keeping cards on hand for the purposes of Brainstorm here. Let's draw another card, I guess. That's what our deck wants to do. Let's have a look. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Cast that in the second main phase. We'll put another counter onto our Staff of the Storyteller. It's just good deck building, right? And red, we'll use our basic. Play this, charge up our staff. We've drawn so many cards this game. If our opponent has instants, there's no point in us keeping these Thoughtseize. If they had sorcery speed spells, they would have played them already. So we're just going to say no to. They have a Hull Breacher, then sure. I guess we go to... Just trying to think if there's any reason to draw a card first. We may as well draw a card first. Have maximum information about our turn. Cabal Therapy, sure. Tableau creatures. 5, 6, 7. We can try and win the game now. This will put a counter on one of our guys. There we go. Okay, so we're looking at Sharktail. Our opponent is going to have some amount of guys, so I don't think we want Court of Grace here. Planeswalkers are just generally good, so I think that's fine. I think Pyroblast is the only thing we really want in our deck here. And I think we can probably drop 3 Plows for 3 Pyroblast. That's pretty clean. Containment Priest doesn't do anything. I don't really like Plague Engineers here. There's an argument for Surgical Extractions if you are worried about certain specific things that you can pluck out of the hand and then extract. Also does deal with the dragon. But I think we've kind of got that covered from what we're doing already. I think we're just going to keep presenting threats. Again, I'm not sure this Nahiri is worth playing. I think it should just be another Emperor or something, or another Dauthi Voidwalker maybe. I don't know. Let's see how this last game goes. Well, might not be the last one. We've got maximum of 2 games left. We have mana, and we have a couple of threats. We're going to need to draw something else if we keep this one. I think we do keep. This means that we can Stoneforge Mystic and then play the Batterskull hardcast later on. Our opponent did not want to start the game on this land, I can tell you that much. We will lead out on a basic swamp, because this way we can cast a Dauthi Voidwalker if we draw it next turn, if that's the thing we're in the market for. It's obviously pretty good against Timeless Dragon, but once they have 2 mana, they should just be able to cycle anyway. Right, let's try for this. Is this worth a Force of Will to you? I don't know. They can't cast a counter spell here, so we'll say yes to this. I imagine our creature is not going to live, but we'll take the Kaldra anyway. We have a second Stoneforge Mystic to follow up with. This Savai Triome is probably going to get cycled this game. Sure. I expected our guy was going to die. That's fine. The Plains. Cabal Therapy. Let's Cabal Therapy our opponent. We don't actually care if they have Force of Will here, right? It's probably the Prismatic Ending that we're more worried about, killing our guy. Okay. Understood. So we'll play out a Plateau here, I guess. So this is going to get us our Kaldra, our Batterskull. They will be able to plow this, which is unfortunate. But we have a Batterskull coming in a few turns, but we will need to get around this Spell Pierce. We had the option of Cabal Therapying the Spell Pierce, so it's better for us later on. But I think we can probably play through it. We've got a very land-heavy hand here, so I was hoping to draw like a Fable so we can pitch some stuff. Okay, so Ponder here. Prismatic Vista, sure. Alright. We found a guy. What are we supposed to do with this guy? We could just cycle the Triome. I'd like to have a guy so we at least get some value off of it first. Let's do this. Oh, another land. That's not great for us. I'll play this Marsh Flats. Because if we can play that guy and then play any spell, we can then get the spell pissed out of our opponent's hand by hook or by crook using the Cabal Therapy. And then we can pave the way for our big equipments, which are very much going to come into play this game by the looks of things. Alternatively, we can just play out our Monastery Mentors as we draw them. Just dodge a Spell Pierce. We need to play a little bit quicker with the clock. We are behind, which is a bit of a shocker considering our opponent's deck. Start the Storyteller. This is a good one. I'm just going to crack this now to thin and then pass the turn. So we're going to get a basic Plains here, I think. The start of the Storyteller is going to be good. We need to claw back time on our clock here. Cabal Therapy. This is a great draw for us. So, let's play this out. Cast this Monastery Mentor. Cast this Cabal Therapy. Getting some Mentor triggers. We know our opponent's got a Ponder and a Spell Pierce. I'm going to draw a card first. Interesting. That's not really what you want to do, because you're probably going to lose your whole hand unless you can remove our graveyard right now. Because we can just keep sacrificing them for our Cabal Therapies here. They want to Spell Pierce this, we will pay. Force of Negation, pitching Spell Pierce. Sure. Okay, we will cast this, sacrificing this. We're going to name this Ponder that's in our opponent's hand. Sure, so we leave them with just a Volcanic Island here. And we've already played land this turn, so we'll pass a turn. We can start jamming with things like Kaldra. There's a volcanic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Play this out, crack this, get basic. Just in case back to basics happens. Let's cast this. It's going to pump all of our guys. You got one card. You did draw the Force of Negation. Okay. Awkward, but such is life sometimes. Right, so we've got a decent clock coming in now. We can play Fable next turn or Batterskull. Prismatic on the Monastery Mentor, sure. A Pyroblast. Okay, we're going to play this out. Always yield to those. Always yield to this. Go attacks. So we've got a Pyroblast to hold up now. And then next turn we can play the Fable. 1 white mana. This looks like a Prismatic Ending. A Staff of the Storyteller. That's a good one. That's going to give them access to 2 new cards, but not immediately. They can only draw once because they only have 1 white source. I've got another white source. Nahiri. Is this what we want to do anything with? I don't think it is. I think we would rather just cast it. 1, 2, and red. Let's get this Fable and Mirror Breaker going. So they're going to draw a card with Staff of the Storyteller to try and hit something like a Force of Negation here. They can trade with one of our monks if they want to by putting 2 spirits under the bus. But I don't hate that for us. We're trying to play quick just in case something does go wrong. We can bounce the Batterskull and have a Pyroblast up. A Brainstorm. I think we will counter this now. So our opponent's just got the 1 card in hand, which was clearly not good enough. They were brainstorming. It's another Brainstorm. Okay. Understood, opponent. We can bounce the Batterskull if they have some way of blowing it up. But otherwise we have a lot of lethal damage right now. They know if they're dead or not. We just cycle the land. This does pump our guys. So okay, we'll cast this for 1 red and then white and black. This is just going to pump our guys. Alright, we got the win there. So we finished with a pretty tasty 4-1. The one round we lost was the one where we mulliganed to 4 in game 3 versus Delver, and we were basically 1 card away from stabilizing, I reckon. Like, if they didn't have that Merc tile, I think we'd probably win that game. So, yeah, this deck is pretty good. Let's have a little chat about it. So, the combination of good discard and good removal is nice. But where these decks have always fallen down in the past is the fact that they can't keep up with the card quality and the card draw of blue decks, right? Staff the Storyteller is so very much the real deal. This plugs in the gap of, oh, we need some card advantage. Right? This on its own is quite often a 2 or 3 for 1 just as a single card, right? So you play it, you get your 1/1. You crack the card for it, and then they might remove it. That's pretty great to begin with. And obviously, with everything we're doing, it just stacks up and becomes better and better as it goes on. And the combination of that and Fable the Mirror Breaker does give us a good way of getting that card quality. So later on, when we got all these rubbishy lands, we draw one of these, goodbye to it. Now, the reason Nahiri is in here is for a similar reason. It's so you can discard a bad card from your hand and improve your hand. The problem with that is this card doesn't look very good, right? The modes on it aren't great. So it can plus to give us like a looting effect. That's not good enough in my opinion. And then in terms of like its other abilities, goading, that's not really going to do that much for us, I don't think. We're generally going to be the aggressor, I reckon. And then the whole thing about getting a creature token, I'm not really sure. It's a one-off thing. It doesn't seem like it's going to be very useful to me. And whenever we drew this, we didn't really want it. The only time we cast it was when we could just use it as any non-creature spell to pump our monk tokens. So I don't think Nahiri is where you want to be. And I understand the idea of trying to improve your hand, but there are planeswalkers like the Wandering Emperor that just, you know, they give you card advantage because they make a 2/2 and stick around and do other stuff, or they kill a guy and stick around, and it's just a better card, right? So I think that's something that I'd look to change. Could turn it into a 4th Dauthi Voidwalker. That would be where I would begin thinking about, because then you just got this really clean slot of 12. What I might say is the red in this deck is just for Fable the Mirror Breaker, which doesn't seem like a lot, but the sideboard options of Pyroblast and Meltdown are very strong. And because of Staff the Storyteller, we can't play any of the white things like Stony Silence or like the colourless Null Rod, because we've got Jittes, we've got Staff the Storyteller, Batterskull sometimes is the thing we want to bounce. So we don't really want to be doing that. So I do think the Fable the Mirror Breaker makes sense, but I don't think we need to lean into it as heavily with the mana here. Like, we've got this Savai Triome, 2 Plateaus, and a Badlands. That's quite a lot. I think we could probably trim one of the Plateaus for another fetch land, maybe. That would give us the same amount of access to the red mana, but then we won't have to get the red mana and we don't want to. That's just a thought. Other than that, this main deck seems genuinely great to me. I think this deck is kind of the evolution of Dead Guy Ale a bit. Now, obviously, Dead Guy Ale used to run Dark Confident and stuff like that, but start with the Storyteller, right? This card is just so good. Especially when we're doing this whole equipment thing, it just means we're going to have loads of spare bodies hanging around. We get loads of card advantage from just making tokens. Like, if you wanted to really go deep, you could play something like Bitter Blossom in here. I don't think that's where you want to be, but flying blockers are good. Stuff the Storyteller already gives us those, but maybe more is okay. Maybe playing one Bitter Blossom is fine. But I do think just having another Dauthi Voidwalker is probably a good place to go. The Monastery Mentor as well in this deck didn't impress me much. I understand why it's there. It makes tokens for stuff the Storyteller, and it makes our Cabal Therapies better. But I think maybe we could do better than Mentor here. I'm not really sure if it's something like going down the curve into Bitter Blossoms, or going up the curve into maybe another Planeswalker, like having another Wandering Emperor and trimming on the Mentors. It's hard to work out what the exact right choice there is. But I think the core of the shell is great, and this is what I've been wanting to see, is people utilising stuff as Storyteller as an engine in decks, especially non-blue decks. We've obviously seen it in Shark Tale, which I think is a pretty decent deck. But as we saw here, it can work in non-blue shells, and it gives non-blue decks a way of pushing ahead. So I've also been playing stuff the Storyteller in my mono white painter deck, which is the build I run is a Stoneforge build as well, and I'm currently 8-2 in leagues with that build of the deck, and I'm now 4-1 with this. I do think Staff the Storyteller is going to become one of the go-to cards for non-blue decks to even up the parity that blue decks get access, the parity of cards, and make it so that we can compete on the level of some of the blue decks here. So yeah. Really liking this one. Obviously, the red for the sideboard choices is good here. The Court of Grace, I don't think is what we need. Like, Staff the Storyteller already gives us the ability to outdraw some control decks. I don't think we need to throw Court of Grace in there. I'd rather have another Deafening Silence or something like that. So I think we could definitely improve how we're set up here. Now, let it be known, we did get somewhat lucky with the Reanimator player whose hand didn't do anything in one of those rounds. But again, we got unlucky with the Delver. So I think the 4-1 is not necessarily an unreasonable representation of this deck. I can certainly see how it 5-0'd, and I expect people are going to brew around this a little bit more and fix up some of the slots like the Nahiri, and maybe tweak the sideboard a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this become like another deck in the meta that people go to, because people are always looking for non-blue decks, right? And for a long time it was, oh, you can play Green Sun Zenith, you can have this sort of Green Sun Zenith-y deck, and that's going to give you access to loads of bullets, and bullets are going to give you, like silver bullets are going to give you the ways of picking apart some of these blue decks, and that's going to help you out. Whereas I think Staff the Storyteller is going to help you out in a different way, but in an equally useful way that's going to make these decks that aren't blue able to keep up with people just constantly brainstorming and pondering or whatever. We can actually just outdraw them. And when we add things like Stoneforge as well, we've got a quick threat they have to respect, and we've got this long grindy engine as well, and they synergize, which is beautiful. So yeah, I've spoken about this long enough. I think this deck is pretty good. All right, before I sign off, let me just say, if you'd like to support me financially, you can do that. You can contact me for a donation deck via the Discord link below. You can get in touch with me, or you can become a YouTube member or a Patreon member. There will be an article going up on my Patreon hopefully soon about Green-Black Turbo Depths, where I'm going to do a full in-depth primer about it. So hopefully I'm going to set a new tier for that, and if that's something that interests you, then please swing on by. But the most important thing is just keep watching my content, sharing it, liking it, subscribing, all that sort of stuff really helps me out, and I like to hear comments from you as well. Okay, I think we're done now, so thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.